a lecture which is delivered by a professor.
Oh.
So I'm very much eager to exchange with all of you, and also to hear what are your comments about what is going on.
Okay, thank you very much, dear professor. It's an honor for us to take a lesson from great scientists like you.
Good, thank you, thank you. Nurjan, can I share my slides?
Yes, of course, 1 minute.
Okay.
How was your meeting with our ambassador?
Ah, nice, nice. I was planning to stay there for, let's say, half an hour, but in fact, we stayed there for 2 hours. So we discussed about many things, very interesting. He was, before that, he was also in the embassy in France. So he knows a little bit about French, he knows France, etc. And what is also interesting is that he used to have in his earlier career a career in business. So he was in banks and in some other companies. So it was interesting to see that he was not a career diplomat as we used to have, or as we still have in many other places.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Здрасте.
Здравствуйте.
Hello.
Здрасте.
Ермек Самарович, нам начинать?
Да, можете начинать, я думаю уже. Запись делаете.
Запись начали. Да.
Профессору предоставили возможность показывать, да, презентацию? Сделали
Да,
организацию?
я предоставил.
Окей, все.
Начнем тогда.
So I will try to share. So I will go there.
Okay.
And you will tell me if you can see.
Так. Yes, we can see.
Can you see? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Dear students, today we have special guests in our lecture. Professor Čedomir Nestorovich. He is a very great scientist and the director of university in Singapore. Yes, professor. Professor of ESSEC Business School, Asia Pacific in Singapore, author of Islamic Marketing, Director Executive MBA Asia Pacific, Academic Co-Director MBA Arabian Gulf University in Manama, Bahrain, and a Professor of the Week by the Financial Times. It's a pleasure for us, dear Professor, to take a lesson from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nurjan, for arranging it. So it is my pleasure also to be with you. Usually when we teach, we are in presence, but now because of the COVID, unfortunately, we cannot do it. So we are doing it online. In fact, when we started to teach online, we were not ready for that because we didn't use it. But now it becomes more and more used. And even the leadership in our school is pushing us to have more and more online. The professors resist, but we cannot resist all the time. So for the moment, we'll have this discussion about about what is happening with the US elections and business in Asia, especially concerning the United States and China. But of course, we can explore many other things. So before talking about what would be the content of this talk, a few words about myself. So Professor Ismagulov already mentioned who I am. So I am a professor at ESSEC Business School. So ESSEC Business School is a standalone business school. This is a French specificity in the sense that if you want to study economy, you are going to a public university. But if you want to study management and business, you are going to private standalone schools. Some of them are members of the chambers of commerce. Some of them are standalone, but they don't belong to the university. However, we are a very big school because we have more than 5,000 full-time students. And we are training also more than 5,000 executives per year. So this is a very large school. So of course we cannot compare to the university. But when we compare to any other business school in the world, we are bigger. We are bigger than Harvard Business School. We are bigger than LBS. We are bigger than Oxford Business School. So it is not comparable. And within this business school, I am now teaching for more than 20 years. So I am one of the oldest professors that we have in the school. And I'm teaching two topics. I'm teaching geopolitics because my PhD is coming from political science, and it is coming from a school in France, which is called Sciences Po in Paris, which is considered to be the best one there. And when I was a PhD student, I was in the department that existed at that time, but now it doesn't exist anymore. It was called Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. But today it doesn't exist, so we have to rename it a little bit. And I am also teaching another thing, which is Islamic business, as you have indicated. So this is something that I teach in many places. I'm in charge of 2 programs here, and I'm traveling quite a lot. So instead of telling you all this, I will show you a few pictures. So in that case, you will see who are the people that I am talking to. This one is coming from last year. So it was before the elections in the United States. And I was in the US, in Florida. So this is the Florida University in Jacksonville. And I was giving a talk about the United States and China. And it was very interesting because in the US, they have a perception about the United States, which is a little bit, perception about China, which is a little bit different from the reality. So especially from the Asian point of view, they are a little bit lost about it. The second picture is this one coming from Amman in Jordan. So when I'm going to Amman, I am mainly talking about Islamic business. So this is what they're interested in. So here you have some students who are coming from the undergraduate program in Amman. And we had a wonderful discussion there. The third one, this one comes from Malaysia. I used to be a visiting professor in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. So they invite me quite often. And this one was on halal travel, especially concerning Islamic-friendly destinations. So it was very interesting to see here because I'm sitting by a gentleman who is coming from Japan and another one who is coming from the United States in order to talk about that. And the last picture I will show you is from my students in Manama, Bahrain. So in Bahrain, when I'm going there, the participants are coming from 3 countries. They come from Saudi Arabia, they come from Kuwait, and they come from Bahrain. So it means that we have quite a diverse audience. We're talking to many people, we're going to many places. So we have a possibility to have, I would say, a rather objective view about what is going on. For today, we will talk about the United States elections and about the trade relationship with China. So I presume that you all have followed the United States elections, and we must recognize that there are surprises about this election, because in fact, the process is not over yet, because the tradition that we have in the United States is that the winner is announced by the media and not by any electoral commission or by the Senate. So the media, and especially one medium outlet, which is the Associated Press. So the AP traditionally announces who is the president, meaning who won the elections. But as you know, the elections in the US are not direct elections. They're indirect elections because they are voting for the grand electors. And the electors are after that casting their votes concerning the president. So it's a little bit complicated. And from the European point of view, for instance, when there are elections in France, the very night we know who is the winner. And there is no discussion about that. But in the US, it can take months in order to realize who is the winner. So let's look at the predictions before the elections. Here you have the different polls. In order to win the elections, you need a certain number of great electors. That is, you need a certain number of votes. And the number that you need is 270. So before the elections, if we are looking at the average of the elections, Joe Biden is given as a winner with about 340 electors, and Trump is losing at about 198 electors. It means that you have a very big discrepancy between what has been expected before the elections and the situation that we have now. What is the situation that we have now? This is the result. So we have 306 electors for Biden, and we have 232 electors for Donald Trump. This is much lower for Biden, and it is much higher for Trump when we compare to the different polls that we used to have before. So before the polls, before the election, all the media in the US were predicting that there would be the so-called blue wave. So the blue color is the Democratic color. And they were saying the blue wave will be everywhere in the United States. However, this did not happen. And especially when we are looking at the number of people who voted for Biden and the number of people who voted for Trump. For Biden, 81 million. For Trump, 74 million. So it means that there is a very big difference. 7 million when we compare Biden to Trump. 7 million. No one can contest this. But what is the point? The point is that no one predicted that Donald Trump will have so many votes. In fact, the 74 million votes, it is much higher than when he won in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. So if the situation stays like this, in that case, we have a clear victory for Joe Biden, either in terms of popular vote or in terms of electors. So no one can contest, because in the past, if you wanted to contest, we have to look at what happened. Here you have the closest presidential races since 1892. And the number of electors has nothing to do with the situation today. For instance, in 2000, George Bush has won against Al Gore for just one elector. So it was 271 against 269 for Al Gore, just one vote. And at that time, there was a big scandal concerning Florida, because it is in the state of Florida that we have the problem concerning one vote for George Bush. Today, with Biden and Trump, we are not in this situation. However, as you know, Donald Trump contests these results. And Donald Trump believes that there were some manipulations. He believes that there are fake results. We should not accept them, etc., etc. But let's put this aside for the moment. The second thing that we have during these elections is that it was not only elections for the president. We also had the elections for the House of Representatives and for the Senate. So let's look at the situation before the elections. Same thing as for the president. You need 218 members of parliament in the House of Representatives in order to have a majority. 218. The average of polls before the elections were giving 244 for the Democrats and 191 for the Republicans. So it was predicted to be a very big victory for the Democrats. However, what happened is that so far, the Democrats have 222 and the Republicans have 210. So it means that the majority that the Democrats have in the House is much smaller than what has been predicted. And concerning the Senate, the Republicans already have 50, while Democrats have 48, and you need one for the Republicans in order to have the majority, and the Democrats need the 2 seats in order to get even. Democrats, they cannot win in the Senate, it's over. But they need the 2 senators coming from Georgia in order to have an equivalent number when we compare to Republicans. What is the conclusion of all this? The conclusion is that the race was much more tightened than it was predicted at the beginning. And it means also that Biden has a very important popular vote, the highest one in the American history. But it means also that Trump is also having a very high popular vote. So as usual in the United States, there is a big polarization between them. So for today, when we are looking at the situation in the US, of course, Biden has won, but there are still processes. So what are the processes is that, in fact, we have to wait until January 20 in order to see who is the president in the US. And until the inauguration on January 20, the president is Donald Trump. Joe Biden can be president-elect, but he is not the president of the United States. So it is a still long process concerning the certification, and even some states in the US have asked to go to the Supreme Court. And this is the information from yesterday, when Texas has been joined with Alabama, Arkansas, and some other states. They want to contest elections in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, because they believe that some rules have not been respected there. So it means that it is still not over. The process concerning the contest still exists in the United States. But objectively, Joe Biden has won. So we can expect that on January 20, there will be a full inauguration and everyone will accept him. So this is how we are looking at from outside, that it is not over yet. And the Asian countries are extremely cautious in this. If I'm looking at the reaction coming from China, we had to wait weeks that the President Xi Jinping congratulates Joe Biden for his victory. And contrary to the situation 4 years back, when he phoned directly to Donald Trump to congratulate him, so far, Xi Jinping, he didn't took up the phone and he didn't call Biden yet. There was just a communique which has been sent, but there was no direct communication between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden. And probably we won't have it until January 20. But in previous cases, it was done immediately. So in Asia, and especially in this part of Asia, and when we talk about China, they are cautious and they want to see what is happening. without jumping immediately and to congratulate Joe Biden. They will do it, but it will take a little bit time. In order to finish with this first approach, I would just like to see what was the situation in 2006 and what is the legacy that Donald Trump is leaving to Joe Biden. On the left side of this slide, you have, I'm only talking about the foreign policy. We have all the elements that Joe Biden has promised. So that Donald Trump has promised. He called Iran nuclear deal one of the worst deals he had ever seen, and he pulled out of the Iranian deal. Okay. Second thing, he wanted to destroy ISIS, but has refused to release details. And we are still waiting for the details. We don't have them yet. He proposed a ban on all Muslims entering US from terror states. And when he took power, he immediately launched the executive order banning people coming from 7 countries to enter the United States, even people who already had a visa in order to go there. He called NATO obsolete, and he has called Putin a better leader than Obama. And he maintained this all these 4 years. Last, he supports Israel and believes he can use his deal-making skills to resolve Israel-Palestine dispute. So on one side, he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And second thing, he asked and he pushed United Arab Emirates and Bahrain to develop bilateral relationship with Israel. All in all, when we are looking at what he has promised, he practically sticks to all this. So it means that Biden will have to look at this and also at the other elements of the Trump's legacy, which are given on the right side, concerning multilateral organizations, concerning the deals, concerning the different countries, and so on and so on. Among them, I will talk mainly about the multilateral organizations, such as the WTO or the WHO, but we will leave this for a little bit later on. Concerning Biden, he has now to build his own team. And as you know, he nominated a certain number of people who are going to be in his team. So we know who is going to be the chief of the treasury. We know who is going to be the chief of staff. We know who is going to be even the envoy concerning the climate change, etc., etc. But in the Democratic Party, there is one group of people who call themselves the progressives. And these progressives are pushing Biden in order to nominate many people they believe that they are close to what they think about. And they issued this small book, very interesting. You can find it on the internet. It is called The 400 Names. So the progressives are proposing to Joe Biden, when you have to nominate, you can choose among them. But what is interesting, when you're looking at the content of it, you will have environment, economic policy, tax policy, etc. But there is one thing which is missing here, and this thing is foreign policy. So it means that the progressives are not interested in the foreign policy, or they don't have enough people in order to propose them for the nomination concerning the foreign policy for Joe Biden. These are the things that I wanted to share with you concerning the elections in the United States. So the first thing is that the process is not over yet. The second thing is that Joe Biden had a very high popular vote. So this is not contested by anyone. Now, Donald Trump also has a very high number of votes for him. It means that if he wants to play a role in the future, he can, because he has 74 million people who voted for him. He can abandon politics, but if he wants to continue, he has enough people that he can count on. And the last thing is that Trump has left some legacy for Joe Biden, and Joe Biden has to deal with this legacy. He's not starting from scratch. Something has been done by Trump, so Biden has either to eliminate it or to jump on it, but it will be his decision. So those are the things I wanted to share with you. And before we are talking about the trade war between the two countries, I would like to see from your point of view, from the place where you are. So you are in Kazakhstan, you are looking at what is happening in the United States. What is your perception, or what is the perception of people in Kazakhstan about the elections in the United States? And it is open discussion, so there is no questions and answers, etc. I would just like to exchange with you in order to see how do you feel about that.
Okay, thank you. Dear students, who wants to talk about it? There are a lot of things in our country about the election of United States, and as we know, election of United States is a global change. For example, as we know, the competition between Republican and the Democratic Party, it was very interesting, and we hope that the relations between our country and between United States will be better. So.
And Nurjan, when you are watching TV in Kazakhstan, or when you are reading newspapers, what is the general opinion? The election is over, or do they still believe that it is not over and that we have to wait a little bit?
There are a lot of things, but I think the elections is over because we think that Biden is a winner.
Of course. Of course. But in some other cases, they may just wait a little bit, as for instance in China. Of course, they recognize that Joe Biden has won, but they still have to wait a little bit in order that it is confirmed by everyone. Okay? And concerning your perception, the legacy of Donald Trump, we can have plenty of different options for that. Some people consider that he is crazy, that he did not contribute to peace in the world, etc. And the others are saying that he did not initiate any new work from the American side during the last 4 years. So maybe we should credit him for that. What is the, let's say, the public opinion that we have in Kazakhstan about him?
In our country, I think that we love Donald Trump because he's a businessman. He is not politics, as we know, and the policy of Donald Trump was very interesting also against our country. But I think that nowadays we have something problem with problems in competition between Donald Trump and Biden. But I think that the politics against our country will not change cardinally. Right now, it's a good, and I think that we just need to improve our trade relationship. That's all, and nothing is going to change against our country. That's why it's not important for us. So, who was the president of United States, Biden or Trump?
Good, good. If you don't mind, I will continue, and after that, I will come back in order to have an exchange. It would be good that students also participate in the exchange, especially PhD students, because this is also very important for them in order to have a discussion with people who are maybe coming from the other countries. Yes,
Discussion. Please, Professor, continue.
So the second thing that we are going to see is the US and China trade war. And we will look at these 4 points, which are given here, called deglobalization, reshoring, decoupling, and bifurcation. And after that, I will explain what do I mean with this. But first of all, concerning this trade war, why is this important? I will make a reference to the Prime Minister in Singapore. This is the country where I am. And he declared for the magazine Foreign Affairs in June of this year that the relationship between the United States and China, this is what I put here in bold, is a fundamental issue of our time. So it means that it is the most important issue that we have today. Many people would say that's not true because we may have the COVID-19 pandemic as the most important issue of our time. But for the Prime Minister Lee, he says no, because at the end of the day, we will find a vaccine against, or we already have a vaccine against the pandemic. So we will resolve this situation. But the rivalry between the United States and China, it's not going to disappear. Whoever the president of the United States is, whoever the president of China is, this is something which is going to stay because it is, as he says, the fundamental issue of our time. So why is it the fundamental issue of our time? I will show you two elements here representing the economic strength of different countries. So on the website, which is called How Much, you can find many of these illustrations. So, and they are giving the relative size of different economies according to two criteria. The first one is the GDP, which is given in official exchange rate. According to this one, the first economy in the world is the United States. And the second economy in the world is China. So we have two countries which are dominating the world. Okay. The second one, which is given the GDP at PPP, which stands for the purchasing power parity, it is different because in that case, China is number one and the United States is number two. So regardless, if you are taking the GDP at official exchange rate, or if you are taking the GDP at purchasing power parity, regardless of that, the two main economies are China and the United States. And please look at the difference or the distance between the second one here, which is China, the second one, which is the United States, and the third one, which is India. So here we have 20 trillion, and here we have 10 trillion. So it means that it is practically impossible for any other country to come here and to disturb the domination, China and the United States. And this will have an impact on all countries, not only between these two countries. Again, from the Singaporean point of view, we are referring to the first Prime Minister of Singapore who funded the Singapore that we have today. His name was Lee Kuan Yew. And he used an African proverb when he was talking about China and the United States. What did he say? He said, when elephants fight, the grass suffers. But when they make love, the grass suffers also. So we have two giants, we have two elephants, and all the other countries are grass. So when they fight or when they make love, the grass suffers. And there is not one country which will be excluded from the fight or from the cooperation. So we just need to know how is the fight or how is the cooperation helping your country or not helping your country. So this proverb is extremely illustrative in order to see that from this part of the world point of view, of course, we recognize that the two biggest players are the United States and China. And the only problem is to know how Indonesia, how Malaysia, how Singapore, how Thailand, how the Philippines, what is the place that they will find between the two giants? If it is a war or if it is peace. But in both cases, they have to navigate and to find out what is going on there. Before talking about the trade war itself, just a few words about how do we view the United States and how do we view China from this part of Asia point of view. And after that, I will ask you to participate. So it is not necessarily your point of view, but I would like to know how in your environment, among your friends, in the public opinion, they are looking at the two countries. From this part of Asia point of view, they admire China. And why do they admire China? There are two things. The first one is pragmatism, and the second one is the capacity to eradicate extreme poverty in the country. So we have two reasons why China is admired. The pragmatism first. They admire it from Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping was the paramount leader in the 70s, just after the Cultural Revolution in China. And he is the father of all the reforms that we have in China. What did he declare? He said, it doesn't matter if a cat is black or white, so long as it catches mice. So according to Deng Xiaoping, we have to put ideology aside. In the case of China, we have to put communism aside in order to develop the country. In many other cases, they were believing that capitalism and communism cannot work together. It is either this one or the other one. But China, with Deng Xiaoping, they have introduced a blending of capitalism and communism. So when you're looking at the Communist Party, the party is declaring that the country, China, is not communist and China is not capitalist. They just say that it is with socialist characteristics. So this is a market with social characteristics. So it means that we have two elements which are put together. And many countries, in the Philippines, in Korea, in Indonesia, they're looking at what is happening in China and they say, wow, that's not easy. So you are taking what they believe, the best from communism, and you are taking the best from capitalism, and you're putting them together. That's something which is kind of revolutionary. The second reason why do they admire China is because it succeeded to eliminate poverty in the country. So we just have to go back a little bit in time. We are in 1978. 1978, you were not born at that time. But this was the time after the Cultural Revolution when China has been devastated by the Cultural Revolution. At that time, there were 770 million poor people in the country. What do we mean by poor people? This is the definition, which is coming from the World Bank, and it is around $2 US dollars per day and per head. If you have less, in that case, it is considered that it is poor. 770 million. Let's go to 2017. In 2017, you have only 30 million poor people. And this year, Xi Jinping has announced there are no poor people in China. This is unbelievable, because in such a short span of time, you have lifted up 770 million people out of poverty. And when I'm going to countries such as Indonesia or Malaysia, where you still have millions of poor people, in 1978, they were at a much higher position than China was in 1978. And today, China is much more ahead of them. So this is why they admire China very much, because the country is pragmatic, and on the other side, they have succeeded to eliminate poverty in the country. Obviously, many people have become rich, but they concentrate on the fact that hundreds of millions of people are not poor anymore. This is for China. Why do they admire the United States? Okay, so let's look at this. The United States is admired for several things. The first one is the stance on human rights. The second one, free market. The third thing is democracy. And after that, innovation and entrepreneurship. These are the reasons why they all admire the United States. For instance, concerning human rights, it means that the United States is not afraid in order to denunciate human rights worldwide. So it can be in China, it can be in Russia, it can be in Brazil, it can be whatever the country is. They are not afraid in order to take the stance if they want, and to say, we cannot accept this because it is a violation of the human rights. The second thing that the United States is admired for is the free market. If you believe in freedom, if you believe in free market, you can succeed. This is why they are using the term of American dream. So the American dream is you are coming poor to the United States, but if you have a talent and if you're working hard, you can become rich. That's the American dream. And you don't need to have political connections. You don't need to bribe someone. You can become rich because the system is favoring talent and hard work. So this is why they're admiring the United States. The third thing is democracy. So democracy is something that we have seen. And especially if you're following, for instance, Black Lives Matter and the different demonstrations that we used to have in the US. In many countries, especially here in Singapore, they're saying it's too much. How can we accept that these people are destroying everything in the US? How can we accept that there is so much violence in the US? We should stop this. And from the American point of view, they say, no, this is the price to pay if we want democracy. Of course, it will happen. Maybe some people are going to be injured. Maybe some people are even going to be killed during these demonstrations. But this is the price of democracy. It means that we will not give up on this. Finally, concerning innovation and entrepreneurship, this is where things are going very fast. In the Silicon Valley, in Boston, in some other places, if you have an idea, you can have people who are following you immediately with millions of dollars if necessary in order to build something. This is why we have so many examples of Tesla company, Facebook, whatever. So we have continuously newcomers on the market with the innovation and entrepreneurship. So I will stop there for the moment. And now I will open the discussion. So we have seen how from this part of Asia, which is Southeast Asia, why do we admire China and why do we admire the United States? But now I would like to know from your point of view, what do you think about? And what do you think that in your country, in Kazakhstan, they think about China and the United States? And it is not only a question for Nurjan, for Professor Ismail. He already talked a little bit about. Let's listen to someone else.
Дорогие студенты, подключаемся к дискуссии.
What I do with my students, I tell them, if you don't participate, I will not stop the lecture, you will not sleep, you will not eat, you will not drink, and so on. You will be punished. But we will not do it here. Hey, it's just a discussion, don't be afraid. I would like to know what you think about that.
Well, in Kazakhstan, we think about America, first of all, about democracy. That is something special. That is, in Kazakhstan, we think we have two sides that think that democracy, like in America, it's something bad because, and as you told us about the something destroying or etc. etc. And of course, the other side there where we think that it's right because democracy giving us some sort of human rights, some sort of chance to show our talents, not with some, I don't know, with relations in politics and etc. like Kazakhstan. So we have two sides in Kazakhstan. Most of all, of course, sides of that democracy, like in America, it's bad. It's much, I don't know, better or more than the other side of us. And it's some sort of sad or, I don't know. What about China? Well, we saw in China, first of all, in economic situation, because China very close to us, and so we see China like in economic, of course, first of all, like business situation in business, because it's China. We, as you told us, like this growing position in their economics, so it's very helpful for us in some situation. Of course, we have two sides, and again, there's some other people thinks that it's bad to have such relations with China. Some people thinks in our country that we are giving them our territory, and so, well, another side, we peoples think that it's good for us, good for our country, for our economic, that will have such relations with China. But we have, other can't. I don't know that we don't have such a good relations, economic relations between China, because we have just an oil communication, and that's all.
Good. Thank you very much for that. Sanjar, is that right? That's your name?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So, in fact, when we start the conversation, there is no wrong answer and there is no wrong comment, because we can jump on this in order to develop something else that maybe we have not seen before, or maybe we didn't think that it was so important. So this is why it is interesting to listen. How do you do this? Sanjar, one last question for you. Do you think there is a difference in generations in Kazakhstan, especially when we look at the United States and China? Let's say
of course,
who are your grandparents, would they have?
We have changes in this. We have changes in our minds, because, and again, internet and globalization is something that changes our country, our world, because we don't have such thing like territory in our minds anymore because of the internet and globalization.
Yeah, that's right.
But we have but we don't but we have some sort of parents' mind in our minds that's we can't increasing so yeah,
Good.
it's
Good. Excellent. Excellent for your reaction. Is there anyone else who would like to jump on this? Or maybe, Sanjar, can you identify who can continue the conversation?
Excuse me, can I?
I don't know.
Yes.
Thank you for the information. Yes.
Please do.
Thank you for interesting information. And I want to answer for the first question about Donald Trump elections in USA. I think that Trump supporters will fight till the end, and at the 2021 there will be big clashes between Trump supporters and Biden-Harris supporters. There will be big clashes between red wave and blue wave because Trump never give up. He's going to fight till the end, and he has a lot of voters, 75 million. And I think really polarization in US people, citizens between your citizens is very big, and it will be not easy to take the power for Biden as a president. What about China and US democratic values? I think that China is, of course, has a huge economy, and for Kazakhstan, it's a little bit dangerous because China is going to conquer Kazakhstan economically because our government take every year big numbers of credits, big financial debts, and that's why it's not, I think, pragmatic for our government. That's why Kazakhstan, China is the hugest economy in the world after USA, and it's not safe for our country in an economical way. What about USA? Of course, there are democracy, and they pay the price of democracy with dying people at the protests. But it's, I think, every citizens of every country should protect their values. For example, in Kazakhstan, no democracy, and every day, every month, a lot of young people dying by the government. And for example, 1 month ago, 70 years student who just protest against the government actions, he was dead, and everybody afraid to speak about this in Kazakhstan. That's why in Kazakhstan, killing the protesters, it's easy. And no one will be talk about this, and that's why we're very admired by American democracy and American values. Thank you for your attention.
Excellent. I like very much your participation in this. And I have the same situation when I'm going, for instance, to Bahrain. Because in Bahrain, here the situation in Bahrain is very interesting because practically the whole population is Muslim, but the majority of people are Shia Muslim, while they are ruled by a Sunni dynasty. So when we have protest, it is protest of one branch of Islam against another branch of Islam. And very often in the news, you don't have information about that. So you have to go on social media in order to have information about what is going on, because in the official media, obviously, they will not talk about that. And when we have the situation in France, we also had the protest in France. Maybe you have seen them last week. So we had the protest there. And it is also the point, what is the choice of the official media? Will they put the emphasis on one element, or will they put the emphasis on the other element? But so far, in France or in the US or in some other countries, they are saying again, this is the price that we have to pay. So that's the price of democracy, and we must continue with that. There would be casualties, there would be injured people, but that's what is democracy. We cannot expect that everything is going to be fine and that everything is going to be peaceful. So I like your contribution very much. Asset, is that right? Is that your name? Good. Someone else would like to contribute to the discussion?
Something.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Aruzhan.
Okay,
Yes.
please do. Please do.
You know, my opinion on this is that China and United States are good in their own ways, but still their economies are like the largest in the world. Anyway, the most important thing about this all is people and their lives and their health and their education and our future. Let me note the United Nations organizations, UN's, what was that? The Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, the goals.
About the future and perspectives. And I think that first of all, it depends on people, because everything in our world around us is made by people and their relationships and in the way they treat people in their countries. United States is much more better than the China, but everything should be, you know, in a right scale, I guess, like not less, not more, because we can, for example, take an example of United States in the latest years when they try to show the world that they are like tolerant, you know, all their attempts to make, for example, the Oscar contest, they like made a lot of criteria which look and sound a little fake. Even yes, they sound tolerant and good, but now it's like getting how to say it? It's getting it doesn't look natural. For example, they Disney. Have you heard that Disney shot the Mulan. In about it's the Chinese princess? Yes, it was the fail. It was the failure of the year because they tried to make it for the Chinese audition, but China didn't like it. They just didn't permit it to be shown in China, so they just failed because neither the United States and nor the China and even no one in the whole world just didn't like this film, right? So this shows that United States is getting.
Aruzhan, just one thing. Yeah. You're talking about Mulan, but I am inviting you to look at the latest failure, which is Monster Hunter. Do you know this movie?
Monster Hunter? No, I guess I think no.
Monster Hunter. This is a video game, but they made
a
movie.
Failure.
So this is also problematic. They launched it in China, and after one day they stopped broadcasting it. So go on the internet, and you will find what is the scandal around Monster Hunter.
In both cases, I think that they've lost billions of dollars. So I think this should be the lesson for them, that they have to do everything on the right, not to do too much. So it wouldn't look
but
fake.
Aruzhan, the United States is always too much. This is why we like the United States, you know, because they're thinking in their own way.
Yes, and I also agree with guys that democracy has its price and everything else, but the Chinese politics also have its price. Like people there are, you know, I don't know if it's true or lie, but I've heard that they can eat their food with some plastic containing, you know. So I think that this is awful and this is terrible. And if it's truth, then usually, I wouldn't vote in
usually this. It is not, because here in Singapore, about 75% of the population is Chinese. So we are used to Chinese food, we are used to Chinese people, etc.
Oh,
but yes, Aruzhan?
I just wanted to add that, by the way, the history of Singapore's development is very inspiring.
Definitely, because I was today meeting with the ambassador of Kazakhstan in Singapore. And I was looking at some pictures, and there was one picture of the first president of Kazakhstan on one side, and you have the first prime minister of Singapore on the other side, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And they were exchanging. Singapore was an extraordinary development because they have passed from third world to the first world in one generation. No other country has accomplished this. When they started in 1965, the GDP per capita in Singapore was equivalent to Ghana in Africa. And today it is number 3 in the world. No other country has succeeded such a big increase except another country, which is Qatar, which is also passing from the third world to the first world, but here it is due to oil and gas and nothing else. While in Singapore, they don't have oil and gas. So it means that it is their own entrepreneurship and their own ingenuity. So I appreciate very much the discussion. So we have started discussion. If you don't mind, I will continue a little bit with slides and I will go back to the discussion later on. But before that, I would just like to check with Professor Ismagulov. Are you here?
Yeah, yes, please.
Do we usually have a break or not?
Approximately 10 minutes.
Okay, because we have to finish at about 5:50, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you don't mind, we'll take just 5 minutes break, just in order to refill my tea, and after that we'll continue, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm coming back in 5 minutes, don't move.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay. So the trade war, which is a very important issue concerning both countries. I will first look at, I'm just skipping this. Why do we have a trade war? If you can look at this chart here, you will see that the main year is the year 2001. This is the year when the Chinese share of total world export has increased dramatically. And this is the year when Japan and the United States were decreasing also dramatically. So today, it was in 2015, China represented 20% of total exports in the world, and USA and Japan are going down. Why do we have this? This is why we have the picture on the bottom of it. The picture is showing that in 2001, the World Trade Organization has accepted China as a full member. So as soon as China has become a member of the World Trade Organization, many things have changed. It means that foreign companies could invest in China and they are somewhat protected. And on the other side, the Chinese market is also open to foreign products. So 2001 was the most important year. So many people say today that it was a mistake to accept China in the World Trade Organization because we are giving so much boost to China and the other countries are losing very much. Okay, so this is one point how we are looking at it. I asked my Chinese counterparts in Shanghai in order to tell me how do they look at this. And they are telling me that's not a problem. We are looking at 2,000 years of history, and we are looking at what is the share of different countries in the total GDP in the past. Okay, and this is the chart, 2,000 years. In the year 1, if you are going to the extreme left, the deep red color represents China, and the other red color represents India. So when you're putting China and India together, they represent more than 80% of total GDP in the world. 80%, just two countries. Obviously, at that time, the United States did not exist. The United States is represented by the deep blue color. So the deep blue color is extending after the 19th century, and the peak of the deep blue color is in the 50s going up to 2001, when China has been accepted in the World Trade Organization. And overall, the Western participation is falling down also after that. So for my Chinese colleagues, the professors in Shanghai, they're telling me this is where China is. So when China represents 20% of total exports, it's normal. We are going back to normal, to the situation of 2000 years ago, because the Western domination is an anomaly. The Western domination is very short. It is starting in the 19th century, but before that, there was no Western domination. So it means that for the last 2 centuries, there was a Western domination, but this is not normal. So we are going back to normal when China and India dominate the world. I was going there with my executive MBA participants, and we were shocked when they announced this. And in fact, the professor was going even further, and he was saying, the sooner you understand, the sooner you accept this, the better it is for you. And we say, no, we don't want. But this is how, from their point of view, they are looking at the world. They are looking at the world on a very long time distance, while the Western countries, it is a very short time distance. So this is how we may have misunderstandings between China or the United States. When the United States can be focused on short-term results, China will say we are looking for long-term results. We can wait. You Americans, you cannot wait, but we can wait. And the history is showing that we can wait. So these are the discussions that we have with the Chinese counterparts, and they will also show us the book. The book has been written by Xi Jinping. So no need to read the book, just look at the title of the book. What does it say? The Chinese dream of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. The term is rejuvenation. What does it mean? It means that we are going back to the glory of the past. We Chinese have a very long history. So of course, in the last 100 years, that is from the middle 19th century to the middle 20th century, this is what they call a century of humiliation, when they have been occupied by the Western powers and by Japan. And they're saying, 1945, we are stopping the century of humiliation. And now we are back. So when we are back, we dominate. You should not be surprised about that. Why are you surprised? 2000 years ago, we used to dominate, so we will dominate again. So I don't represent China. This is not my speech. This is how they're looking at it. So of course, we were not prepared to have this kind of speech, but it was very interesting to see at how they are looking at the world and especially about the future. A few words about the trade deficit. As you can see, the most important date is 2001. And this is where the deficit with China, from the United States point of view, was beginning to become very important. When Trump took power in 2016, and after, he inherited about $400 billion deficit with China. $400 billion. And he's saying, no, we cannot accept this. We have to do something. So he implemented tariffs on China. It is not a boycott, it is tariffs. So it means companies can continue to work with them, but they will have to pay taxes when they work with China. And he introduced tariffs on China, but we usually forget that China retaliates China is also introducing taxes on the United States. So let's look at this situation here on this graph. We are in 2018, just 2 years back, just 2 years back. The blue color represents the tariffs which have been instituted by the United States. The red color represents the answer by China. So it means that from January 2018 up to September 2019, when America is introducing tariffs, China is introducing even higher tariffs. So it is a trade war in both ways, because we are instituting tariffs on both countries. It is not only the United States which is implementing tariffs. China is also implementing tariffs on the American produce. But the difference is that many American companies produce in China, so they are considered to be domestic products, so they don't need to pay taxes because it is produced in China. While for the others, when it is produced in China and when you export to the United States, in that case, you will have to pay taxes. So that's one thing concerning the tariffs. The second thing is that we can have now some consequences when we are looking at the trade war. And we have 4 terms which are given here. So I will go through these 4 terms. The first one is de-globalization. What does it mean? You are young people. You are born with globalization. It means that all your life, you were only looking at the expansion of globalization, meaning we are eliminating more and more barriers. We are eliminating more and more frontiers. You can establish business everywhere when you want, etc., etc. So this is globalization. So for you, since you were born with this, you will believe that globalization is unstoppable. No one can stop globalization. And second thing, it is irreversible. It cannot go back. Once you started globalization, you are continuing globalization. You are not stopping it, and you are not going back to the previous situation. But this is where we have 2 problems. So the first problem was Brexit in the European Union, when the United Kingdom voted on the referendum to get out of the European Union. And the second one was the election of Trump, when he established the tariffs on trade with China. So it means that what you believed was globalization forever, and globalization expanding all the time, this is not true anymore. Now we realize that globalization is not forever, that globalization can be stopped, and to some extent, we can also go back. One of the reasons for this was the COVID-19 epidemic, because for many Western countries, they have realized how much they are depending on China, and they don't want this. Not because they fear China, but it is because if something happens in China, and if China cannot deliver, for instance, this product, you know this is a mask that you need. So if China cannot deliver masks, if China cannot deliver the respirators, who will deliver it? No one, because we have transferred the production to China. So it is not that they have something against China. It is that they don't want to depend on one single country. So this is why they're saying globalization is good, but there are some limits to the globalization. We cannot transfer everything, because if we can transfer everything, in that case, we are putting in danger our own population. So globalization that we used to know in the past is changing today. What Donald Trump is doing is that he wants also to destroy a little bit globalization, and especially the multilateral organizations. And I will look at 2 of them, the WTO and the WHO. So the first one is the WTO, which stands for World Trade Organization. That's okay. World Trade Organization, it is permitting you to be present in any country to do business and so on. What is the problem? The problem is that within the WTO, you have categories of countries. Some countries are called developed countries, and some countries are called developing countries, and some countries are called least developed countries. So if you are in the category of developing countries or least developed countries, it means that you don't need to apply all the rules from the WTO. It means you can protect your industry because your industry is weak, it is small compared to multinational companies, so you want to protect it. So Donald Trump is saying, no problem. They are developing countries, poor countries, so they need different rules. But the question is, who defines what is a developing country? And in one of his tweets, he's talking about that. So let's look at this tweet here. The WTO is broken when the world's richest countries claim to be developing countries to avoid WTO rules and get special treatment. No more. If you go to WTO, this is their website. They're explaining you how can you become a developing country. Let's look at what is written here. They say there are no WTO definitions of developed and developing countries. Members announce for themselves whether they are developed or developing countries. So for instance, the United States can say we are a developing country. Norway can say we are a developing country, etc., etc. And some countries are claiming this. Among them, the biggest one, China. So Donald Trump will say, how come that the first or the second economic power in the world is a developing country and benefiting from some facilities which are given by the WTO? We cannot accept that the number one or number two is considered to be a developing country. But China is not the only one. Let's look at the list of these countries here. You will find in the list South Korea, you will find in the list Hong Kong, you will find Singapore, you will find United Arab Emirates. All these countries are considered to be developing. But Hong Kong and Singapore, they are among the richest in the world in the terms of GDP per capita. How come that they are developing countries? It is because they have declared that they are developing countries. And when Trump has attacked China, he also attacked Singapore. How did Singapore answer? The Minister of Trade in Singapore has answered, and he has said this: as a small economy with no natural resources and high reliance on global trade, Singapore is a developing country WTO member. But there is a question, how do you define what is a developing country? Here we don't talk about the GDP. We don't talk about the GDP per capita. We say we don't have natural resources, so we are a developing country. But that's not true. Luxembourg also doesn't have natural resources, and it doesn't claim that it is a developing country. Yes,
but does it mean that Singapore will always be a developing country if you will never have natural resources?
Obviously.
This is weird, no?
So this is what Trump is saying. So Trump is saying we cannot accept that countries by themselves declare if they are developing or developed countries. We must have criteria for that. But we don't have criteria. So any country can declare whatever they want. And if you want to change the rules, in that case, you need the majority in the WTO, and you will never get it. So according to Trump, we are not here to defend Trump, but I just wanted to explain how he has come to this idea in order to attack the WTO, because he believes that there is something strange, that there is something which is not normal when we are looking at that. So when we are considering who is developed, who is developing, it is very easy, because, for instance, if you are going to the World Bank has clear criteria. They have high income countries, they have lower income countries, they have medium income countries, and we are using the GDP per capita in order to identify in which category you are. So depending on that, there is no preference, there is no estimates. We are just looking at the hard data, and the hard data are defining, but not at the WTO. In the WTO, we don't use this. We are asking the country, and we are asking Japan, are you developing or developed? And Japan says, I don't know. Let me think about that. This is how in the WTO, they are defining which country is developed and which country is developing. So this is one thing that Trump has against the multilateral organizations. The second one is the list of United Nations agencies. So please look at the list and look at the names. And what can you see when you look at the names? Is there one country which is very much represented?
China.
Yes. How many agencies?
4. Yes.
Four of them. Four of them. Arujan, I will ask you to look at one specific agency, which is called International Telecommunication Union. Okay? According to you, Arujan, why is this agency important today?
Telecommunication.
Yeah.
Well, I guess because it's like the it's the strongest way of influence of our time, like telecommunications and media.
Telecommunication, not the media itself, because here ITU is not looking at the content of it. They're looking at the infrastructure. And the infrastructure,
I thought it's about the radio. It
can be, but it was in the past. Today,
now it's
different. Today it is internet, and today it is the 5G. So the ITU has to come up with common standards for the 5G. So far, we have very few companies which can deliver infrastructure for 5G. One of them is Ericsson from Sweden. The other one is Nokia from Finland. The third one is Samsung from South Korea. And the last one, two of them, have Huawei from China and ZTE from China. So if you have a Chinese director of ITU, will this Chinese director favor the Chinese 5G? What do you think, Arujan?
I think yes.
Of course, yes. So now it's up to the other members in order to work around this. So when you have four of them who are sometimes at the important agencies, how many do we have for the United States for these UN agencies?
Just one.
Just one. Which one?
It's World Bank Group.
The World Bank, we talk about money. So there is one arrangement which has been made after 1945. At that time, China was very weak. Soviet Union did not want to participate in this. So they are saying the World Bank will always be managed by an American. And the IMF, International Monetary Fund, will always be managed by a European. So from 1945, everyone was respecting this. But today, you have many countries which are complaining. Why do we have this monopoly concerning Western countries for the two most important monetary institutions, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund?
But who else can handle this?
Sorry?
Who else can handle this? If
You
not
can
largest.
anyone for that, because it is not American money which is here. It is not European money which is here. You have the money from the whole world, which is channeled. You can put a director coming from Africa. You can put a director coming from Latin America. We have them for some other agencies. Why not this one? So this is a question. Huh? This is an ongoing discussion that we have about that. So for today, we have an American and we have 4 Chinese. And Trump is saying, no, we cannot accept this. But there is a problem. The problem is that the United States, in fact, they did not want to have candidates for all these positions. They're saying it's enough for us to have the World Bank. For the rest, we don't care. And now that we have 4 of them Chinese, now you care about it. So this is also one element why globalization is posing problem for Trump. So everyone expects that Joe Biden will not be like this, that Joe Biden will come back to multilateralism, maybe pushing for more Americans in order to be present at the United Nations agencies. This is one of the possibilities, or to stop the influence of China in the United Nations agencies, since they have 4 positions today. This is the first point, which is deglobalization. I will mention the second one, reshoring, and after that we may have a small discussion about it. What is, by the way, did you see this term before, reshoring?
No, I know offshoring.
Exactly,
reshoring.
you know offshore. So offshoring is when I am an American company, let's say I am Coca-Cola, and I am coming to Kazakhstan. And I am using a bottler in order to bottle Coca-Cola in Kazakhstan. In that case, I am offshoring. Reshoring is
I think I got you.
Sorry?
I think I got your thought. It's returning, right? Back.
That's right. You are coming back. So for instance, if I take the example of Coca-Cola, I am saying, I don't want to bottle Coca-Cola in Kazakhstan. I am bottling only in the United States. And from the United States, I will export to Kazakhstan. So I don't do anything there. I'm just selling my products there. This is reshoring. You are going back. And when Trump has been elected as the president in the United States, he was saying, we want Americans to go back to the United States because of the jobs, because in that case, they will not be under the influence of the other countries, especially in China. So we want them to come back. Okay, fine. But is it easy to go back? What do you think? It is not easy at all. Why so? Let's imagine that I am a company, Apple. Okay, so Apple is selling this kind of products. So this is an iPhone, okay? Where is the iPhone assembled? What do you think?
In China?
It is assembled in China, okay. And it is assembled in China by whom? Is it Apple assembling it in China, or is it someone else? What do you think?
I think it's the Chinese companies who work with Apple.
It is not exactly a Chinese company, it is a Taiwanese company. And this Taiwanese company is called Foxconn. So Foxconn is assembling this in China. Okay. And let's imagine that Apple would like to bring it back to the United States. Okay. In this product that you can see here, in this product, you may have hundreds of different spare parts or different equipment inside, hundreds of them. So if you establish a supply chain in China, it means that you can have hundreds of people who are working for you. So it is not Foxconn, but you can have NVIDIA for the video card. You can have Qualcomm for the chip. You can have other BASF, for instance. BASF is participating in this for the colors, because you can see colors here. The colors, they don't come from nowhere. Someone has to produce the colors. And BASF, as the biggest color manufacturer and chemical company in the world, is producing the colors for Apple. But it is not coming from Germany. BASF is going close to Foxconn when they are assembling it. What is the point here? The point is, when you are assembling, you need an ecosystem. The ecosystem is represented by all the different suppliers who are working with you, and you may have hundreds of them. So Apple can say, I don't want to work with Foxconn anymore. I am going back to the United States. But now we have to see, will the suppliers go to the United States also? Maybe the cost of production in the United States is not good for them, so they will not follow Apple going there. Or maybe the market in China is so big for them, they will continue to work with Huawei, with ZTE, with Xiaomi, with anyone on the Chinese market, and they will not follow Apple if it goes back to the United States. So the point that I wanted to mention is that on the paper, it seems to be extremely attractive and extremely easy to go back. But you have to convince everyone to go back. And this is something that it is not easy. I will show you a couple of slides, and after that, we'll initiate a conversation about that. One slide is to see if the companies are willing to come back. So I will show you the American Chamber Supply Chain Survey. We have two of them, one from October 2019 and another one during the time of the pandemic. They have asked the American companies, do you want to go back to the United States? Okay. And here are the results. So we have three groups of companies. For 61% of them, they don't want to go back to the US. For 19%, they can think about that. For 20%, they think about that and they started to do something. So it means that we still have 20% of companies which are interested in that. But it was in October 2019. The second survey from April 2020, all this is available on the internet free of charge. You can go there and you can download. They are asking the same thing, do you want to come back? And here is the result, too soon to tell, 52%, no change, 40%. Only 4% of companies were thinking we can go back to the United States. And I'm going back to what I mentioned before, meaning you want to mitigate the risk of being too much attached to China, so you need another country. So this is called the China +1 strategy. So which country is the number one in the China +1 strategy? It will be Vietnam. The second one will be India. After that, you have Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, and the others. But definitely the country number one will be Vietnam. So the influence of the trade war is deglobalization, reshoring, decoupling, and bifurcation. Today, I don't have time to talk about the other two, which are bifurcation and decoupling, but I would like to initiate the discussion about the first two, that is globalization or deglobalization and reshoring. And in order to initiate the discussion, I would like to know, did you ever heard about this aspect of deglobalization? Meaning, we want to stop globalization. We don't want to continue as we used to work, let's say, for the last 20 years. Did you ever heard about that?
Yeah. Yeah, we heard about it.
Yeah, Sanjar?
Yeah, I would say that we heard about it.
Can you develop a little bit? Who is talking about that? In which circumstances did you hear about that?
Well, first of all, from our country, of course, about deglobalization, because they won't lose their identities about that. And about deglobalization, some of other countries that want to be identical in their economic, they want their own economic system. That's how they heard.
Okay.
And
so one thing that you have mentioned, meaning losing the identity. Very interesting concept. Very interesting concept. Why so? It is because let's imagine that you have a powerful neighbor, which is China. And let's say that the powerful neighbor, this is something that we have mentioned before, is giving you a lot of credits and you cannot repay those credits. What will happen if you cannot repay the credits? In Africa and in Sri Lanka and in some other places, this is exactly what is happening. We call this a debt trap policy. So the debt trap policy means I am giving you a loan, let's say $100 million, in order to build a port. We are building a port, but now you cannot repay the loan. What will happen, Sanjay, if you cannot repay the loan? In that case, the party that has given the loan will take the port. And they will say, now the port is mine, even if it is in your country. The port is mine because you cannot pay for that anymore. Or we are building a railroad, or we are building a hospital, or we are building anything. I am giving you the money in order to build this. You cannot repay. Okay, give it back to me. So this is how you will repay me. And in many countries in Africa, they are now reconsidering the situation. Because they say, okay, easy money is one thing, but we also have to think about how can we repay? Do we have enough activities in order to repay? Or are we building something and it will be like a monument, but we cannot use it? It will not belong to us. There are some other people who will come there and they will take all our economy. So that's the problem concerning the identity that you were talking about. Money exists. This is not the problem, but we have to see how will you repay. And if you don't have money, maybe you have to give something in exchange. So that's the problem.
They become addicted.
Sorry?
They become addicted.
Ah, you can become addicted to money. I like this. You can, even my wife is addicted to money. It is a very easy thing to get addicted to money. One last term was reshoring. So, Arujan, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
You're here. Where is the camera, Arujan? You don't want to show your face, huh?
What to show you?
The camera. Can you turn on the camera?
Ah, camera.
So this is a smartphone that you are using, is that right?
Yes, right.
Which smartphone do you have? Which brand?
Which what?
Which brand? It is Apple, okay? So
yes.
this is arranged, manufactured in China, etc. So when we discuss about reshoring, okay, and we try to explain what is the concept, did you see before this term, or is it the first time that you are seeing reshoring, Arujan?
I think now I think that I've heard it, but I just sort of forgotten the what is that. So yes.
Or maybe you didn't pay attention to the term before. Today it is a very important term because they want to bring all these industries and companies back, which will not be easy.
Going on globalization. Yes.
Deglobalization. So deglobalization is the contrary to globalization. So,
that's what's going on right now in the world, right?
Yeah, that's right, that's right. So, and for many people, it becomes easy because with deglobalization, it means that you are re-establishing the borders. It means that you are not permitting people to travel. You are not permitting people to have businesses in other countries. So for many, I would say, authoritarian regimes, it is better not to have globalization because globalization is not good for them. When people can exchange, when people can travel, they can have other ideas, they can have other concepts. So when you are restricting globalization, in that case, you can have just one narrative in your country and you don't have anything else. So we have here the mixture between economy on one side and politics on the other side. Professor Ismagul, I think that we are gradually coming to the end of this discussion. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So I have plenty of other slides, but unfortunately, I don't have time to show them. What I will do is that I will send all the slides, even the slides that we didn't see. So in that case, it can generate another conversation. And I would like to thank you very much for this. Can I ask a favor for all of you so you can put on your camera just for one picture, one photo that we can take together? Is it possible that you can turn on your camera?
1 minute, please.
Yeah, just 1 minute, no more. Huh?
Ребята, все в видео включим, пожалуйста. Все включаем видео. Нужно сделать коллективное фото.
Excellent. Good. We have practically everyone here. Fine. So we take one picture like this. And I will take one from the screenshot. So again, thank you very much for this participation. Hopefully we can meet in the future. So please keep in touch. I am really happy to discuss with you, and especially to have your point of view. It is very interesting in order to have and to confront the different points of view. So I'm really grateful for you and for your participation.
Thank you very much, dear professor, and for very informative and interesting lecture for our students. And we hope to see you in our university after pandemic. Exactly.
I hope so. I hope so. When I was in France, I was in this department of Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. So I used to learn Russian at that time, but now I practically forgot everything. So the only thing that I would like to say is всего хорошего, and maybe we can meet next time. Okay?
Okay. Thank you very much, dear professor.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.